Morihei Ueshiba, the founding father of Aikido, driven by his never-ending desire to further his study in martial arts, sought the truth by practicing austerities in Iwama. Aikido is a new form of martial art which developed from traditional Japanese culture. All martial arts prior to Aikido were constructed around the principle of attack and defense, with their first aims being victory. Aikido, however, is designed as a discipline of the mind and body beyond combative sport and therefore has no competition. Its goal, rather, is to develop the individual, the entire self, through the daily practice of different techniques. Normal Aikido training consists of repetition learning. When practicing with a partner, it is important to bear in mind that true strength can only be obtained through the mutual understanding and desire to perfect and master each technique. One must master the basic techniques first in order to see improvement in the more advanced techniques. In other words, only when the basic moves have been mastered, one is able to progress in the art of Aikido. Remember that the movements which will be introduced here are the foundations of many other techniques. There are a few exercises and movements which should be highlighted before learning the basic techniques of Aikido. Today, we will demonstrate the most important ones. First, let's look at the warm-up exercises. In the martial arts, as in all sports, it is important to prepare the body prior to the regular training by performing the necessary warm-up exercises. Calisthenics for the joints are especially important in Aikido. Rotation of the upper body. Bending and stretching of the upper body forward and backward. Bending and stretching of the upper body to both sides. Bending and stretching of the legs. Be sure to stretch your Achilles tendon. Rotation of the knees. Exercise for the ankles and toes. Exercise for the neck and shoulders. There are a few special warm-up exercises for your wrist joints: kote gaishi, kote mawashi, and tekubi shindo. The body does not utilize these joints under normal conditions, so it is important to perform these exercises carefully in order to increase their flexibility before moving on to the actual Aikido training. Now let's look at some basic movements. The stance depends on how you place your feet when facing your partner. When you stand with your left foot forward, it is called hidari gamai. With your right foot forward, migi gamai. Aihanmi is when both you and your partner use the same stance. Gyaku hanmi is when you and your partner use opposite stances. Mai is the distance between partners. It is important to ensure that your mai is sufficient for easy maneuverability as well as for the performance of the various techniques. Proper mai is when your hand and that of your partner can just touch each other. Mitsuke allows the movement of your opponent to be detected in his eyes. In other words, your opponent's intentions will show up first in his eyes.
目付けは大変重要なことです。人間は何かしようとするとき、必ず目に現れます。この目付けによって相手の意思を知り、自分に有利な間合いを作ることが肝心です。
To form the tegatana, or hand blade, keep your arm rigid from the elbow to the fingertips, especially from your wrist to the fingertips, in a similar manner to the chop used in karate. In order to change your body position while maintaining a stable posture, you should pay close attention to using correct hakobiashi, or footwork. Move your front foot one step forward. Before planting the front foot firmly on the ground, quickly move the back foot towards the front one. Both feet should be set firmly on the ground simultaneously. It is important to try to keep your body stable during the action. In this movement, the back foot always follows the front. For Ayumiash, let the feet alternate forward and out. The foot motion, which originates from the rear, should look like this. Mawariashi allows one to quickly change a forward stance to a back stance by rotating the body. Shiko is a form of walking that does not require a person to stand up. It uses the knees and waist as the fundamental points of motion. While kneeling, raise up on your toes, and then use your knees, hips, and toes together. Alternate forward left and right in a hanmi stance. Keep your feet together, and when rotating, stand on one knee as a pivot point while you move the other. Courtesy persistently must always be the natural behavior in Aikido. However, it must also allow you to defend yourself against a sudden attack. Let's look at an aspect of Aikido which is based on this ideology.
Aikido は日本の伝統的精神性の現れである礼節を重んじます。合気道を始めるにあたって礼を尊ぶ心が何よりも必要なことです。
All techniques in Aikido are designed to allow you to counter an attack from any direction. Let's look at a number of offensive moves in Aikido. There are three types of attack when the mai between you and your opponent is relatively wide. Shomenuchi, or front strike, Yokomenuchi, or side strike, Tsuki, or punch. When the mai is narrow, your opponent may attack you in one of the following ways: katate dori, wrist grab; ryote dori, both wrists grabbed; morote dori, two-handed grab; kata dori, shoulder grab. Your opponent may also attack you from behind. One example is ushiro ryote kubidori, both wrists grab from behind. Now let's look at some forms of ukemi. Mae ukemi, falling forward; ushiro ukemi, falling backwards; and yoko ukemi, falling sideways. For mae ukemi, Swing your arm inward as if to draw a circle, and pull your chin in as you roll forward. For a Shilo Ukemi, pull your chin in, bend your knees, and round your back as you roll backwards. Ushilo Hanten Ukemi is similar to a Shilo Ukemi, except that you rebound and roll forward to your original stance just as your back completely touches the ground. For Yoku Ukemi, slide your right foot in front of your left foot and stretch the leg as you fall to the right. Strike the ground with your right hand as you fall to reduce the shock of impact. The same steps apply using the opposite foot and hand when falling towards the left. Sotai dosa is a partner exercise prior to normal practice. These basic steps will be applied in various aikido techniques, so let's look at a few demonstrations of sotai dosa. First, let's look at tenkan ho used for practicing movements of your body in shiho nage. There are basically two types of tenkan and ilimi. For these exercises, purposely let your opponent grab your wrist so that you can lead him into your sabaki or counter by forming a hand blade. Tenkan is necessary for sabaki, where you pivot behind your opponent. For ilimi tenkan, enter by moving your body forward. Shiho gili is another warm-up exercise for shiho nage. When your opponent takes hold of both your hands, direct him towards your movement by forming hand blades with both hands and swinging them up. Complete your sabaki by making a turn and swinging your hand blades down. Stop just before throwing him. Shiho gili omote is performed from an ai hanmi. Do an ilimi by stepping forward and then pivot. Shiho giri ula is performed from a gyaku hanmi. For your sabaki, pivot widely in a circular motion. You should perform certain exercises to cool your body down after training. Those exercises will help to ease your body and mind back to their normal conditions. Moreover, they will help you to release accumulated fatigue and stress, so take your time to perform them carefully. In order to reach the advanced techniques in Aikido, you need to attain various giho or levels through the repeated practice of the basic techniques. Today we will demonstrate two types of nage-waza, or throwing techniques, called ilimi nage and shiho nage, as well as katame-waza, or pinning techniques, called ikkyo ude osai. There are many variations to these techniques depending on your opponent's attack. We will go through 5 of them today. Later, we will also introduce how to control your breathing, since this is an indispensable part of Aikido. When your opponent grabs your right hand with his right hand, step in with your left foot and grab the back of his neck. Move in to his side as you cut your hand blade down in a circular motion to break his balance. As he tries to regain control, step in and throw him down to your side with your hand blade.
掴まれた腕を動かすのではなく、まず左足を大きく相手の側面へ踏み込み、入り身することが大切です。
When your opponent strikes you at your face with his right hand, quickly perform an irimi stepping in with your left foot. Grab the back of your opponent's neck with your left hand and then pivot widely to your right to break his balance. Then step in and knock him down to your side with your hand blade. When your opponent grabs your right wrist with his left hand, grasp his left wrist with your left hand and step forward as you swing your right hand blade up in an arc. Pivot to your left and cut your hand blade down while holding his left arm.
相手の手首を取る場合は、小指からしっかりと握ることが大切です。また、この技では右足を踏み込み、しっかりと入り身し、相手を崩すことが大切です。
For Ula Waza, rear technique, first tenkan widely to your left as you grasp your opponent's left wrist with your left hand. Then form a hand blade with your right hand and swing it up in an arc. Finally, throw him as you cut your hand blades down. Form a hand blade with your right hand and swing it up as soon as your opponent grabs your right wrist. Next, take control of his right arm by using your left hand blade and break his balance. Finally, take 2 big steps forward and pin him with his right arm.
この技では、掴まれた手をまっすぐ上げるのではなく、螺旋状に振りかぶり、切り下ろすことが大切です。
Slide your left foot forward toward your opponent's right side as soon as he grabs your right wrist. While balancing on your left foot, pivot and take control of his right arm. Finally, pin him from a seated position. When your opponent attempts to strike at your face, take control of his arm using both hand blades. Step in to break his balance and pin him from a seated position by using his arm. For urawaza, the alimi motion is applied. When your opponent attempts to strike you, take control of his arm with both hand blades. After a wide pivot, break his balance using the controlled arm as you turn. Finally, pin him from a seated position. The basis of Aikido is ki, or the unified action of mind and body. Ki can only be developed by practicing so-called breath power training, which enables you to concentrate and summon your inner energy. During the execution of Aikido techniques, if ki is utilized as the essence of every movement, it is called kokyuryoku, or breath power. No Aikido technique can be properly executed without proper breath power. We will now introduce the two different methods of practicing breath power. First, zaho, which is practiced in a seated position, and second, rippo, which is practiced standing. When your opponent grabs both of your wrists, form hand blades and swing them up in a spiral motion. During this action, concentrate on your hand blades and imagine that all your ki is accumulated and released through your fingertips. Break his balance and throw him to one side. For Rippo Omote, let your opponent grab your forearm with both hands. Do an irimi to your opponent's side into an ai-hanmi position. Close your armpit as you form hand blades and swing them up high and then down on your opponent to knock him down sideways. There is also an urawaza for Rippo. From the Gyaku Hanmi position, make a wide pivot to your left, balancing on your right foot. Form hand blades and break your opponent's balance as you swing them up. Step in behind him with your left foot and then swing down the hand blades to his rear. We have now gone over some of the basic movements and techniques of Aikido. They are all important steps to be practiced and mastered before moving on to the next. All beginners must patiently repeat these basic lessons regularly, preferably on a daily basis.